Hey everyone, jumping on here to do a video on a little bit of an update since my 40-day juice fast, which helped me release a 14-foot snake of old fecal matter and mucoid plaque and all of the above, which I will not show pictures in this video. You can go to the other video if you want to see the pictures and the evidence of that. I'm sitting here eating a fruit meal, just some grapes, watermelon, and pineapple, and I felt like I'm getting a lot of questions on firstly how to do the juiced fast, and also what I'm eating now and how that's unfolding. Naturally, after the 40-day juice fast, where I had released so much and felt so light and saw it as really just a reflection of the release of emotional energy that had happened over so many years, and then the physical coming to manifest and mirror that. I really got into a perspective of just wanting to eat tasty things at that point, just the things that I enjoyed as cravings and just simply meals that I really loved. Because during that 40-day juice fast, I really came to the clarity of what the pranic way, pranic living, breatharian perspective really is. The fact that we really don't need the same nourishment as we think we need, but nothing really needs to be rushed, and we can move through the journey in a natural way, in a natural pace, at the time that's right for us. Because really the journey is so individual, and anytime we get caught up in dogmatic viewpoints, even within the detox community or vegan community or fruitarian, breatharian, all of it, it's simply getting caught up in labels, and labels that fuel the egoic mind as if somehow you're now better off than you were before or something. And we could say yes in a certain sense as we get lighter in our diet, as we get lighter in our energy, our weight, our emotion, our belief structures. We are returning to an essence of truth. We are returning to the true being in which we are, that in a sense needs nothing within the physical dimension. It can sustain itself through energy, through breath, through the natural elements. And yet at the same time, with that said, we don't need to rush that process, because really it is a healing process. It's a remembrance of our true power, and who we are. So with that all in mind, we have to always go at it, at our own pace, and move, very slowly and methodically and naturally. That 40-day juice fast was actually so easy. It was the easiest fast I've ever done. Easier than like my first 3-day water fast or 72-hour dry fast or endless other types of fasts and things like this. It happened so naturally and so effortlessly, and I did not plan for it to go 40 days. It just simply happened, where day by day I checked in, and it kind of unfolded. And by the end, I kind of had my mind wrapped around 40 days, and I felt like I potentially could have went longer, but it felt complete, at least for that period. And of course, in the solid food vacation, according to John Rose, the prune test, which you would do when you feel like you're coming to an end, is basically to see if the prunes go through you within, I think it was an hour and 12 minutes. He's done over 1,000 days total of juice fasting, and so he's got it down to like literally the minute of when the prunes come out of you. In that period, that you're clean and your digestive tract is clean. And this doesn't happen for a lot of people, but fortunately for myself, it happened almost exactly on the dot of that hour and 12 minutes, or I forget the exact time. So it felt complete. And then, so I went through quite a few months after that into the winter, eating things that were just really tasty, things I just simply really enjoyed. And that was so nourishing. But at the same time, I could see what happens when that occurs. I could see the weight, that I also put on. I had a bit of physical weight. I saw, my digestive tract kind of slowing down. You can get a bit more lethargic. There's many layers to it, but in a sense, it was a beautiful period for that to occur. And as summer and spring was approaching, it was clear that this whole process was going to happen again, and a little bit differently, because I have been more in an intention of putting on some more muscle. As I've lost quite a lot of weight over the years, from all this fasting and cleansing and things like this, and I felt like coming into a stronger body was an intention of mine. So I've really started to adapt a more fluid process with the whole the juice fasting as a whole, naturally juice fasting is always a part of the daily experience, is juicing all the time. Sometimes I'll go days, of just juice. But at the same time, now I've been keeping it with some bigger meals like salads, mainly raw. I'd say about 95% raw, and I'd still go about 5% cooked, where I'm going into crunchy things or things that kind of fill that craving, if you will. And the core of which is really coming into a perspective, as I shared recently on our recent talk with Katie, their detox conversation, which was around the topic of compassionate fruitarianism, the original fruitarianism, which fruitarianism traditionally people think, okay, well, yeah, it's we're eating the grapes and the pineapple and the fruits, right? But in the traditional fruitarianism, which actually comes from the Essene tradition, which is a subset, a mystical tradition of the Christian teachings, which was said to be the original Jesus teachings, these teachings focused on fruitarianism that was also basically inclusive of anything that nature provides without it needing to be killed for it to provide it. In the sense that, for instance, a plant that gives fruit, you can just take the fruit off and the plant survives. Some vegetables are like this, but then some vegetables are not. Nuts are like this, seeds and these types of things. Even things like raw milk and some animal products that cows and goats and things provide. And so the perspective here is that anything that nature provides without it needing to be killed is in alignment with the original fruitarianism or compassionate way. And I've naturally lived this for quite some time now, but of course there's times where I'm getting lettuce or something that I know is probably not, it's not being cut off, the leaves are not being cut off, it's being uprooted. And so we have to be somewhat practical with this, though I found a continual emergence into the approach of compassionate fruitarianism as a whole, which also means raw, not cooked, and it means taking only the vegetables that the plant will still survive or still provide its food, without being killed, without the plant being killed. And personally, I find this to be a beautiful perspective and really in alignment with the true way of how I've resonated and the energy exchange that occurs with consumption. And so, naturally, to focus on building weight or building some muscle or coming into a stronger body, I have focused on some perspectives of what John Rose speaks of, and he's a wonderful tool and asset that really has stand the test of time. I mean, he's almost 7 years old, and he looks, like jagged, like a 40-year-old or 35-year-old man, being a 30-year raw vegan and doing so much of cleansing. So he's pretty big on macronutrients, getting your macros in, your proteins, all of that, but still being done through a highly fruit-based raw vegan lifestyle, which includes a huge salad, like a 5-pound salad every day, and then quite a big meal of fruit, or multiple meals of fruit, which is quite accurately close to what I'm doing at the moment. And it feels quite light, feels clean, digestive system passes it very quickly, very easily. And naturally there is room still also for juice fasting when the time is right. And we're back now with the shirt on to continue this conversation. So as I mentioned, this new unfolding with the diet plan, if you will, we can call it a diet plan, but just a little bit of structure on the eating process and the unfolding of this current intention of putting on some weight, which really isn't putting on weight, is just sustaining and continuing to allow the body to express itself in its most natural form, which I feel is a bit heavier than where I'm at presently. And then we kind of continue to go down the rabbit hole of that flow, because one thing to point out, and as I was speaking before about some perspectives, like John Rose is very adamant about macros. So even while you're doing the juice fast, you're getting the macros in, and you're drinking a lot of juice to hit those macros, those calories, really the calorie level. And yet then we have other perspectives in the detox community that really view detoxification as really going to the deep end. Like we're not really focused on macros. We're not looking for nutrients. We're looking to really strip out all of the gunk that's in the body. And I tend to rest kind of right in the middle between some of these perspectives. I see the validity in keeping the macros up, especially if you're wanting to keep weight on, or at least keep muscle or keep looking, fairly healthy and this type of thing. And yet at the same time, I also recognize the real depth in which we have to go to truly cleanse and detox and rejuvenate the entirety of the body, which when we look at the prune test, for instance, of just having the prune test being passed, I don't necessarily believe that that is the end of the healing process. And I don't necessarily believe that John Rose thinks that. I feel that naturally there is just, of course, a cleansing in the digestive tract that now has been completed. Though when we look at the entirety of our body, like our joints and our ligaments and, the rest of our organs that aren't connected to our digestive process, our brain, and the neurology in our brain and our spine. There's so many other layers to the healing, which when we're doing long periods of detoxification over a long period of time in cycles, there's so much depth to the healing process that, just because we pass the prune test doesn't necessarily mean that that healing has occurred. And I can say this from my own experience because I can see certain things that I would like to continue to heal that have come quite a long way, though they can continue to deepen. And in a sense, we could say it's a lifelong process. And inevitably, if we have the intent to, at some point, realize the nature of our pranic or breatharian ways, then that brings a whole new layer of healing as well, and integration and embodiment within one's being, that all the layers of one's belief structure naturally have to be in alignment, right? And that's really what it all comes down to. We could say that, okay, well, there's not too many breatharians that have, let's say, a muscular body, but then at the same time, we are starting to notice a few of them. There's a few that, on YouTube or what have you, but still, it's still quite a reach. And at the same time, I feel over the next, decade, 2 decades, as we really continue to move into this, that will also change because the collective belief structure of what is possible is also going to continue to open up. And through the opening up of that, more and more are going to have their own belief structures opened up and see what is truly possible. And so, we really have to stick it out and not get caught up in identification because, we see countless videos of let's say vegans becoming ex-vegans now and bashing veganism, or, all these things of people who went vegan and look really malnourished, or, all these things. But the reality is the detox process is so long. So we cannot just stop at the point of, okay, I looked malnourished now and everything is because of veganism. It's like, well, no, that's not necessarily the case. And yet at the same time, it can be the case to the degree in which, again, where your belief structure is at. If we're bringing a misaligned intention, or we're just looking to identify with a new belief structure, a new perspective, then naturally we are going to find a point where we're humbled once again that identification is not going to provide us the long-lasting results that we're truly looking for. And this is where we have to stay vigilant and stay in the middle and not get caught up within any of that, and listen to ourselves, listen to what is happening within our being, and take all of the guidance from all the great teachers who have much more experience potentially than us, but yet still pass it through our own experience by actually practicing it and not speaking about things without actually practicing. That's very important, because if we do that, then we naturally are spreading illusion, because we do not have the direct knowing. We may have the mind knowledge, but we don't have the direct knowing. So I'd ask everyone to consider that within their own experience and how they're sharing about it, or are they encouraging others if they're on this path of really integration, embodiment of the true self, and allowing that to move through every aspect of one's being. So this video went into many different things. Just really wanted to speak on what the process of the flow of eating now and where I'm headed. I mean, there's naturally much depth that will continue to occur, and I will go on a much longer juice fast at a certain point. And now I'm kind of just cycling in between and really enjoying it. I feel amazing in so many ways. And so with that, I will leave it there. I have some other videos on the way about what juices to use in the juice cleanse, some other layers. The emotional healing process I've just released at ayp.life. This is my entire system on healing your emotional, energetic self, and how that integrates with everything we're speaking of here and many other different intentions and perspectives. So deep love to you. ayp.life, check that out, and add me on all social platforms, and we'll continue to connect. Peace.